Good is not a thing you are, Kamala. It is a thing you do.
Miss Marvel is bad.
Yo, killing me with this.
I don't want to say it, but I gotta. In my opinion, it's far better than Loki and leagues better than anything Star Wars has been dropping lately.
Like a panther. Yes. Yes.
After all these Disney Plus shows, I'm coming to the opinion that Disney got really lucky with Mando, because all of their content that aren't classics from their catalog is just ass.
Oh my.
And that's why originally I planned to skip this show. When it was first announced and the trailer dropped, it didn't seem interesting. But then I started seeing Rotten Tomatoes say this show was the greatest MCU show. So even though I know this is obviously a lie, I still went out and watched it. But to my surprise, I actually liked it. I loved all the actors, especially Iman Vellani. She's very charismatic every time she's on the screen, and from what I've learned about this actress, it seems like she's like Kamala come to life. Everything that she is in the show, she's kind of is in real life.
Nice. This office alone is gonna make me move to LA. Nice. It does not.
Oh, so close.
Yes. I can't.
And if I were to sum it up at this moment, I would really say it was fun to watch.
What the hell is even that?
I will talk about how good this show is, but I gotta talk about how quickly this show fell apart. It starts off strong until they fly to Pakistan. And yeah, this trip is completely unnecessary. Miss Marvel surrounds you with a great cast of characters that are in Kamal's life, which makes you forget you're watching an MCU show. But as soon as the tone switch from wholesome storytelling to fighting supervillains, it gets lost. Because this show isn't an MCU show. It's more of a coming of age, fresh off the boat sitcom. And on its own, it's not a bad thing. But as a part of a major franchise that's always setting up the next big thing, that's kind of bad. The villains, bargain bin level trash. Their motivations aren't interesting. They don't have superpowers, and their fight scenes are boring. They aren't intimidating at all, but somehow they end up in a supermax. Which, side tangent, what's the point of this prison? Like 90% of villains in the MCU gets killed at the end of the movie. Like, are they holding up corpses or something? Because if they are, then I got a few more corpses for you. The clandestines were barely in the show, and they were only menacing for like 2 episodes, and that's being extremely generous because they don't really do much, which by the way is a common thing in phase 4. These shows are empty and they feel soulless. Nothing of interest are put into them and can be easily summed up in a short sentence.
I made mistakes and people were hurt.
I'm not here to talk about Westview.
These shows are basically stuck in purgatory where they have to follow the narrow path that Feige has set up. Marvel is basically reliving its history and not learning from its mistake with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The only time Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other shows like it were able to strive was by allowing them to do whatever they wanted.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not, you stupid bastard?
Despite what all the anti-SJW channels and news sites will tell you, this show isn't terrible, and all the things they claim are bad are what actually makes this show good. This show is well shot with an interesting stylized vision. From the way the camera switches from the real world to Kamala's daydream world, and all these minor shots relating to two characters texting back and forth, there's always something interesting happening in the background. Like I've said from the beginning, Kamala, her friends, and family are just fun to watch. Every scene with them is packed full of emotions, whether it be sad or happy. Kamala's culture isn't always center stage, but when it is, it's very impactful, and it doesn't leave out characters that you would expect. Bruno is like a second son to the Khans. They're always packing him food or inviting him to family events. And I gotta say, some of my favorite moments in the show are these community parts where we see different cliques learning different parts of this culture that I'm not familiar with. And one of the most important parts that most people are not watching the show for is that it isn't woke. The men aren't idiots and are actually wise, smart, or kind. There's a moment where Kamala's dad is providing comfort to her brother during his wedding. And there's a situation where Kamala needs her family, but she can't really go to them, so she goes to her local imam, and he informs her of the best decision. Miss Marvel is somewhat woke. It doesn't talk down to men or make the viewers feel like the struggles of a certain demographic is struggling because you, the viewer, or people with your same sex, race, or sexual orientation are responsible. Instead, it chooses to give you a ticket to travel through the world of Kamala, and yeah, she stops at a mosque and eats food that you haven't eaten before, but those stops are where the story actually shines. This show is like visiting a friend who has a different background from yourself, and if after all that you still want to say this show is bad because they promote another culture and you're American, I'm gonna need you to return your American citizenship, because the backbone of this country that makes America great is that we are a melting pot of ideas and experiences, and this is a good show minus a few episodes, and it's only these 2 episodes that really drag the show down because it's trying to be a part of something bigger, a part of the MCU, and the MCU is very corporate when this is trying to be not corporate. This show is definitely not a good MCU show, but it's still a good show in general.